M1 Pro and M1 Pro Max were announced recently. Google Pixel came out with its own chip, sort of, and Intel prepares to take on AMD with its Alder Lake 12th Gen processors. Note that these are all happening at the same time as Oppo planning to leave Qualcomm as its chip manufacturer and Samsung gearing up to launch Exynos with AMD GPU. I gotta say that these companies had previous 7 to 8 years to do these innovations, but the landscape itself is changing, and this is very important. You can see in previous years, Qualcomm next iteration would be just a plus like Snapdragon 855, and next iteration is 855 plus. Oh, and it is just a 855 overclocked. These comfort zones are results of monopolies in certain categories. But when we get the competition is when the real innovation appears. Let's take a look at them one by one and see what kind of impact it's going to have on the industry and us consumers. First up are M1 Pro and M1 Pro Max. When Apple came out with M1 last year, everyone including me thought, wow! Performance aside, battery life of these M1 devices was insane. That's one of the pros of an SoC. This year they are more efficient and deliver more performance. The M1 Pro SoC includes CPU, GPU, unified memory architecture, RAM, Neural Engine, Secure Enclave, which is a security subsystem for SoCs, SSD controller, image signal processor, encode decode engines, Thunderbolt controller with USB 4 support, and more, all of which power the different features in the Mac. Like M1 Pro is 5 nanometers. Maybe we'll get to see 3 nanometers next year. M1 Pro Max takes it even further with more efficiency and more performance. To give you guys some context, M1 Pro beats at 11th Gen i7 and M1 Pro Max goes head to head with 11th Gen i9. I am so excited about these SoCs, but there is something that needs to be mentioned and I feel like it's being glossed over. We use x86 x64 architecture in our day-to-day, but these Apple SoCs are actually ARM v8. These are completely different architecture and the results are also architecturally bound. So the performance and efficiency differences that we are seeing are for the apps that are optimized for M1s. If you could take a native x64 application and try to run it on M1, things would be different, even with Apple's compatibility layer, Rosetta. That's why M1s cannot provide the same level of ultra-high gaming like PCs can. Yet, ultimately they are contextual. But I feel like a broken record saying that because what I'm really excited about is competition. A 5nm tiny chip going against a whole PC ensemble. It's amazing and it's only gonna get better from here. When your entire resource layout is on a single chip, you can do so much to enable efficiency and performance, and I think that's the whole point of these chips. Pixel 6 series came out with this long-awaited Tensor chip, as various reviewers pointed out that the photography is pretty much unrivaled, but videography goes again to iPhone. I pretty much expected that, but what I didn't expect was for Google to come out with its own chip. Granted, it is still derivative of ARM, but companies now making their own chips, meaning less monopoly. Tensor can have edge over some specific scenarios. One of these will be applicable to all of us, such as long-term usage. This long-term usage will learn our patterns and preferences to give us durability and more efficiency. Intel is coming out with this Alder Lake processors to take on AMD. The biggest noticeable change is that they have efficiency cores and high performance cores. The idea is that Windows can put low to medium prioritized tasks to the efficiency cores and heavier resource hungry tasks to the performance cores. Now, where have I heard that before? Ah yes, the big little architecture courtesy of ARM. PCIe 5.0 and DDR5 support with Alder Lake. This is Alder Lake at a glance. So even Intel is getting competitive now. When we heard that it's going to move away from the whole nanometer scam, I was skeptical, but the initial results are very promising. Oppo is planning to leave Qualcomm as its chip maker. Q2 of 2021, they held about 10.5% of the international market share. Now, if you take a quick look at it, you might say, oh, they just want to make their own chips. Big deal. It might be cost effective in the long run, and they can deliver potentially more performance. But there is a little bit more to that. You see, BBK Electronics, which is the parent company of Oppo, Vivo, OnePlus, and Realme, is a Chinese brand. Huawei was banned to use the US resources for its technologies, which resulted in a complete halt and termination of Google services. So the company that was number 2 globally not too long ago now seems like less global, and of course I'm talking only about their smartphone division. I believe that Oppo is doing this to avoid a whoopsie daisy like this, but regardless of their reasoning, it's a good move for competition, marketing, and consumers. Finally, Samsung is coming with its Exynos chips powered by AMD. Every single Exynos chip for a past few iterations has been lackluster to say the least. And honestly, I wouldn't care if it weren't for two things: thermal throttling and battery life. It's finally using RDNA 2 technology from AMD. There were some initial reports that Samsung is having some problems with sustained performance. Hopefully they will be resolved in the Galaxy S22 Ultra. If this chip can surpass Qualcomm in some crucial aspects, Samsung got a winner on their hands. So what's the point? What does all of this mean? The future is ARM architecture for sure, but to be more specific, the future is SoC. It is a bad news for upgradability. I remember just about 2 years ago I was having a discussion about CPU architectures, and I was like, it's gonna take a long time for an SoC to replicate a performance of, let's say, a RTX 2080. But we're getting there sooner than expected as nanometers shrink and we can make it more efficient, implement better resource management. Good thing is it's Apple, the biggest company, so the developers will be more than happy to port their apps, programs and softwares to the new Max ARM v8, hence giving us even fewer reasons to stick to the mainstream architecture. It will take some time to phase out x86, x64 architecture from mainstream completely though. Instead of a handful of chip makers and companies playing a monopolistic business model, we're gonna have extreme competition amongst the companies, where they're gonna try to provide competitive pricing, more features, accessibilities, compatibilities, better value, sustainable performance, and a lot more. Say what you will, but I think this is a big win for us consumers. With that being said, this is Rogue Hat. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you guys later.